drilling process, I'm going to show you what the handles do on a radial drill press like this. And this one is pretty old. It's viable and it works. And I've actually seen people pull vehicles underneath these machines to drill out broken head studs and things like that, rather than pulling out the engine. But you've got a tombstone here block, which you can put a vise on, or you can use strap clamps and strap clamp your die block right to it. I've drilled on these machines on die blocks that are probably 3 by 4 foot blocks, and so those you bring over with a hoist, and you don't have this tombstone on here. You actually set them right down on the machine base and then strap clamp them to the machine base. Okay, so this lever disengages the column so that you can move it back and forth like this. And it's rather heavy. I mean, skinny guy like me, it's shoving me out of the way when I bring it back like this. And if you want to lock it so it stops, you push that lever down. Okay, this lock is for the other axis, and then this crank handle, this moves it in and out for positioning. And then you can lock the brake, and then that'll lock that in place. On some of the newer versions of these, and I like those better, they're actually pneumatic. They have air on them, and then there's 2 push buttons, and you just line it up, and then you just push those 2 buttons real gently, and it has a tendency of locking the machine in place without losing your location by a little bit. These things are so heavy, by the time you go and crank them, you could have lost your location a little bit. But I'll show you a trick for getting that. All right, as far as the height of it's concerned, and you got to be careful, because if you don't pull the lever down in time, you can actually jam the column on the bottom or jam the column on the top. Been there, done that. But you lift this lever, and you'll notice it's going up. And again, up and down, that doesn't work like a micrometer dial by 1/1000th of an inch. But don't worry about that, because you have this dial that gives you your drilling, the quill length. And that quill length on most of these is about 12 inches. On the next size machine up, it can actually go to 18 and then to 24 inches. So you just have to get relatively close, because you're going to have plenty of travel here. Now, in the case of drilling a big die block, I've already had a situation where I lower the column and the head, and then I drill with my 6-inch jobber's drill, and then I have to raise the column up, and then when I get to my 18 or 24-inch drill, I'm actually raising the column up that much higher so that I can continue drilling with that drill. So again, accuracy here, if you're within a few thousandths to a 10,000ths, that's probably more than sufficient for a water line. Okay, all right, so if we take a look at this front plate here, you'll see that this is the RPM. So it's just a lever that you move up and shift to whatever position you want. There's 1500 RPM, there's 475 RPM. So this gives you your RPM. If you look up here, this gives you your feed per revolution. So if you're going to be power feeding down, which you can on this machine, you choose whether you're going to go 4 thou revolutions, 7, 12, or 20. Those are your choices. You can also hand feed this machine down by just moving this lever. If you're power feeding it down, and I'm actually going to turn it on here for that, so I'm going to get it into an RPM, get the spindle going. You can actually pull these 2 closed. I'm sitting on the 0. Oh, bear with me. I pulled this out of gear to show you the numbers for the revolutions. I got to put it back into one. All right, we're at 20. No, we're not. We're at 7. Okay, so you can clearly see now that it's power feeding down. I have to have this lever to the left and I close these clamps, and it will now feed down a given depth. You can also reverse the spindle, and you can feed the opposite direction. I don't know why you want to do that, if you want to feed out or whatever. Okay, now, in regard to this slip ring dial here, if you've touched off, you can actually take and loosen the slip ring dial, and you can turn it, and it's kind of hard to see these numbers, but you can turn it, for example, Drew went down 4 inches on the other one in the Akuma, so we could set this at 4 inches and lock this, and now when we lock it in place, it's going to drill down that 4 inches until it hits this 0, and that's going to trip it, and it's going to stop drilling. So it's a depth stop that you can use, and those depth stops, they're accurate enough for water lines. Okay? All right. So what I'm going to do is show you how to pick up your water line. I'm going to loosen up these 2 levers so that I can position it. And again, depending on the drill length that you've got, you want to take your drill and you want to make sure that when your drill's chucked up that you're going to have enough travel. Remember I said you got about 12 inches of travel here, so you want to make sure you have enough travel. So if not, lower your column down to about where you think you're going to need to be. Okay? And now we're going to take a center drill, and I have a large diameter center drill, and we're going to put that into the spindle. And the trick that I'm going to use is I'm actually going to put it in a low RPM, and I'm going to run the spindle backwards like you would in probing a cutter on one of the CNC machines. I'm going to run the spindle backwards, and I'm going to bring that tool down and just let it rub on that prick punch hole, and that's going to help me align it for picking up so that I don't have to eyeball it. And it's pretty accurate. I mean, it'll get pretty close. You just have to kind of position your machine. So begin by eyeballing it. Okay. And now we're going to raise it up, and I'm going to make sure I got the spindle going backwards. And now as I bring it down lightly, I'm going to kind of position it here, close. And when I get close, I'm going to hold a little pressure on it, and I'm going to lock those. So under power, running it backwards rather slowly, I located it. It kind of bounces around the machine a little bit, and then when I held a little pressure on the feed lever here, and then I locked the 2 axes so that it stays put. Okay?